My sister's son smashed my $3,200 laptop on the driveway and said, "Buy another one, loser." Everyone watched. That night, Dad texted, "We don't want you around anymore." My sister liked it. At 7:10 a.m., Dad was pounding on my door. After one video from the driveway appeared, in the family group chat. "Hello everyone, my name is Rachel Morgan. I'm 34 years old, and the day my sister's son destroyed my $3,200 laptop in front of my entire family was the day I finally stopped making excuses for them. He didn't accidentally break it. He took it from the patio table, walked into the driveway, and smashed it against the concrete. Then he looked at me and laughed. "Buy another one, loser." Everyone saw it, nobody stopped him, and when I asked my parents to say something, my father simply told me, "He's a kid." I looked at my sister. She shrugged. My mother sighed. "Rachel, don't make a scene. It's just a laptop." I stared at the shattered pieces on the driveway. It wasn't just a laptop. It was my work computer. I used it every day as a cybersecurity consultant. It contained specialized software, years of configuration, and projects I'd spent months working on. But somehow, I was the one being treated like the problem. That evening, my father sent me a message. "We don't want you around us anymore." My sister reacted with a heart. I didn't argue. I simply replied, "Understood." What they didn't know was that my driveway security camera had recorded everything. Every word, every movement, every person who watched and did nothing. And the next morning, I would send that video to the family group chat. But first, you need to understand how my nephew got to the point where he thought destroying my property was funny. My sister, Jessica, was 3 years older than me. Growing up, she was always the louder one. My parents constantly defended her. If Jessica needed money, Dad helped. If she made a mistake, Mom explained it away. I was always told, "You're the responsible one." I hated that sentence, because in my family, being responsible meant being expected to tolerate everything. Jessica eventually had a son named Ethan. When he was little, I loved him. I bought him birthday presents, helped him with homework, even gave him one of my old computers when I upgraded. But as Ethan became a teenager, he became increasingly disrespectful. He'd walk into my house without knocking, take food without asking, borrow things and return them damaged. Whenever I complained, Jessica would laugh. "He's just being a teenager." My parents always agreed, so I stopped arguing. I simply kept my distance. Then came the barbecue. My parents hosted a family barbecue on a Saturday afternoon. Jessica arrived with Ethan. There were about 10 people in the backyard. I had brought my laptop because I needed to finish a client report. I sat at the patio table while everyone else talked. Ethan came over. "What are you working on?" "A client project." He looked at my laptop. "That's the expensive one, right?" "Yes." "Can I use it?" "No." He laughed. "Why?" "Because it's my work computer. I won't break it." I still said no. He rolled his eyes and walked away. I didn't think much of it. A few minutes later, I went inside to get a drink. When I returned, my laptop was gone. I immediately looked around. "Ethan?" Nobody answered. Then I saw him standing near the driveway, holding my laptop. My stomach dropped. "Ethan?" He turned. "What?" "Put it down." He smiled. "Relax." "Ethan, give it to me." Instead, he lifted it above his head. I froze. "Don't." He laughed, then threw it. The laptop hit the concrete. Crack! The screen shattered. The frame split apart. Pieces scattered across the driveway. For a second, nobody moved. Then Ethan kicked one of the pieces. "Buy another one, loser." I stared at him, then looked toward my parents. "Are you serious?" Dad shook his head. "Rachel, calm down. He just destroyed my computer. He's a kid. He's 16. Jessica crossed her arms. "Why are you making such a big deal out of this?" I looked at her. "It's worth $3,200. She shrugged. "So?" My mother stepped in. "You work, you can replace it." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. He destroyed something that belongs to me. Mom sighed. "Don't start." I looked around the backyard. Nobody was defending me. Nobody was telling Ethan to apologize. Nobody even looked uncomfortable. I bent down and picked up the broken pieces. My hands were shaking. Not because of the laptop, because of what the reaction told me. They weren't shocked. They weren't angry. They simply didn't care. I drove home. I placed the broken laptop on my kitchen table. Then I remembered the security camera, so I'd installed it months earlier, after someone stole packages from my porch. I opened the footage. There it was. Ethan taking the laptop, me telling him to stop, him deliberately throwing it. His exact words, "Buy another one, loser." And behind him, my family watching. I saved the footage, then saved another copy. I didn't know what I would do with it, but I knew I wasn't going to lose it. That evening, my father texted, "You embarrassed everyone today." I replied, Ethan destroyed my property. He answered, he's a kid. I wrote, he's 16. A few minutes passed. Then, you're always creating problems. I put my phone down. Jessica sent another message. Get over yourself. Then Ethan, LOL, buy a new laptop. I didn't answer. At 9:47 p.m., Dad sent one final message. We don't want you around us anymore. I stared at the screen. Years of family gatherings, years of helping, years of forgiving. And apparently, one broken laptop was enough for them to decide I was the problem. I typed, understood, then turned off my phone. The next morning, I opened the family group chat. There were already several messages. Jessica had apparently told everyone that I had lost my temper at the barbecue. Someone asked what happened. She replied, Ethan accidentally damaged Rachel's laptop, and she completely freaked out. I stared at that sentence. Accidentally. I opened the security footage again. There was nothing accidental about it. I attached the video to the group chat, then typed, this is what actually happened. I pressed send. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then one person viewed it, then another, then another. The typing indicators appeared. Mom, Dad, Jessica, my aunt, my cousin, everyone. The first message appeared. What the hell? Then, he actually threw it. Another, why didn't anyone stop him? Jessica immediately wrote, take that video down. I didn't respond. My aunt replied, why, it's the truth. Jessica went silent. Then Dad called me. I ignored it. He called again. I ignored it. Then another message appeared. Rachel, call me immediately. I didn't. Instead, I watched the family chat explode. People were asking questions. Jessica was trying to explain. Mom was saying everyone needed to calm down. But the video had already been seen. There was no version of the story they could rewrite now. Then my doorbell rang. I looked at the clock. 7:10 a.m. I walked toward the window. My father was standing outside. He was pounding on my front door. Behind him, Jessica had just pulled into my driveway. She stepped out of the car. Then she looked directly at my security camera. Her face went pale. I knew immediately. They weren't there to apologize. They were there because the video had exposed them. And as my father raised his fist and pounded on my door again, I stood there watching them through the glass, finally understanding that whatever happened next would change my family forever. Sometimes the truth doesn't need revenge. It only needs to be seen by the people who were never supposed to see it. And as my father demanded that I open the door while my sister stood behind him, I reached for the handle, not because I was afraid of them, but because I was finally ready to hear what they planned to say after the whole family had seen the truth. I reached for the door handle, then stopped. I looked through the window at my father. He was still pounding. Rachel, open the door. I didn't. Instead, I opened the security camera app on my phone. The live footage showed Dad standing on my porch, Jessica behind him, and both of them looking directly at the camera. I pressed the intercom. What do you want? Dad immediately shouted, we need to talk. No, Rachel, you told me you didn't want me around anymore. That was last night. I remember. Jessica stepped forward. Please just let us explain. I looked at her. You had plenty of opportunities to explain yesterday. She looked down. Dad became angry. You humiliated this family. I almost laughed. You mean the video? Yes. The video didn't humiliate anyone. You did. No. Ethan did. Silence. Dad had no answer. Then Jessica finally whispered, can you please take the video down? I stared at her. Why? Because everyone is angry. I nodded. Good. She looked shocked. Good. Maybe they should be. Dad slammed his hand against the door. Open this door. I stepped away from it. No. We're your parents. And this is my home. That stopped him. I continued. You told me you didn't want me around. So I'm respecting your decision. Dad looked furious. Jessica looked embarrassed. Then I said, go home. They didn't move. Finally, Jessica whispered, I'm sorry. I looked at her. Are you? Yes. For what? She took a breath. For letting Ethan do it. For laughing. For telling everyone it was an accident. I nodded. That's a start. Dad looked at her. Jessica. She turned toward him. She's right. He stared at her. You need to stop defending him. Dad's face hardened. He's a kid. Jessica shook her head. He's 16. I almost smiled. Those were my exact words. They eventually left. I didn't open the door. I watched their cars disappear down the street. Then I went back inside. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. The family group chat continued for hours. My aunt called me, then my cousin, then two relatives I hadn't spoken to in months. Everyone had seen the video. Everyone had questions. One aunt asked, why didn't anyone stop him? I answered honestly, I don't know. My cousin asked, did he apologize? No. Did your parents offer to replace it? No. Then why were they blaming you? I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The video had answered everything. By afternoon, Jessica finally posted in the group chat. She wrote, I should have stopped Ethan. Then, I shouldn't have called Rachel dramatic. Then, I am sorry. I stared at those words. I wanted to believe them. But an apology after being exposed isn't the same as an apology before being exposed. Still, I didn't respond. 2 days later, Ethan's father contacted me. He wanted to pay for the laptop. I told him the exact amount, $3,200. He immediately transferred the money, then sent another message. I'm sorry. I accepted the payment, but I didn't replace the laptop immediately. Instead, I hired a technician to see whether anything could be recovered. The physical damage was severe, but fortunately, my most important files had been backed up. The laptop could be replaced. My work could continue, but the incident had changed something far more important. I stopped going to family gatherings. Not dramatically, I simply stopped. If they invited me, I declined. If mom called, I answered only when I wanted to. If dad sent a message, I didn't feel obligated to respond. And slowly, my life became quieter. Better, about 3 months later, I received an unexpected letter. It was from Ethan. He had written it himself. Not his parents. Him. He said, I was angry because you told me no. I wanted to embarrass you. I thought everyone would laugh. When I saw the video, I realized how bad it looked. Then he wrote, I'm sorry. I read it twice, then put it away. I didn't hate him. He was 16. He had made a terrible decision. But I also wasn't going to pretend it hadn't happened. I eventually replied, I accept your apology, but trust takes longer than an apology. He responded, I understand. That was enough. My relationship with my parents took longer. Dad struggled the most. He had spent years believing that being the head of the family meant everyone had to accept his decisions. When he told me he didn't want me around, he expected me to come back anyway. When I didn't, he didn't know what to do. Mom eventually admitted something. She said, we thought you'd always forgive us. I looked at her. That's the problem. She cried. I know. You became so confident in my forgiveness that you stopped being careful with my feelings. She nodded. I know. It wasn't a dramatic conversation. There was no shouting, just the truth. 6 months later, I bought another laptop, a better one, but I didn't bring it to family gatherings. I kept my work separate. I stopped leaving expensive equipment unattended. I stopped lending things. I stopped assuming family meant automatic access. And strangely, nobody complained. Because once people realize you actually mean your boundaries, they start respecting them. Epilogue, a year has passed since Ethan smashed my laptop. Our family isn't perfect now, but it is different. Jessica and I speak regularly. She still feels embarrassed about what happened. Sometimes she apologizes again. I tell her she doesn't need to. What matters is that she changed. Ethan is 18 now. He's working part-time and saving for college. He's apologized to me in person. He even bought me a small gift with his first paycheck. It wasn't expensive. It was a simple coffee mug. The note attached said, for the aunt whose laptop I should never have touched. I laughed when I read it. I kept the mug. My parents changed too. Dad doesn't tell me what I should do anymore. Mom stopped using family as an excuse whenever she wanted something. And I learned something important. I don't need to cut everyone out to have boundaries. I don't need revenge. I don't need to make anyone suffer. Sometimes, all I need to do is stop accepting behavior that hurts me. The $3,200 laptop was replaceable. My files were backed up. My career survived, but the trust I had in my family, that took much longer to repair. And honestly, I'm glad the security camera recorded everything. Not because I wanted to embarrass Ethan, not because I wanted my family to fight, but because without that video, they would have continued telling a story where I was the problem. The video gave me something I couldn't argue with. Proof. And sometimes, proof is powerful enough to change an entire family. My thoughts. I've learned that family doesn't automatically earn unlimited access to your life. Being related to someone doesn't give them permission to disrespect you. And being forgiving doesn't mean you have to be available for the same mistake over and over again. Ethan learned that actions have consequences. My parents learned that protecting one family member doesn't mean sacrificing another. And I learned that I don't have to shout to defend myself. Sometimes, the strongest response is simply documenting what happened, walking away, and refusing to participate in the lie afterward. Because when the truth finally appears, you don't have to convince anyone. You just have to let them watch.